Great things start from small beginnings. To help make great Tizen apps, we'll first show you the basics. Hi guys, it's Michael again from Samsung Developers. Today's episode is all about the Tizen Alarm and how it is used as an exercise planner. We chose the Alarm API because it's one of the core APIs inside Tizen and one of the easiest to learn. We'll first talk about the Alarm API, then show you how to use it, and finally we'll demonstrate it in an app. Let's get started with an overview. The Alarm API lets us access functions for setting, unsetting, and scheduling the system alarm. Here are some helpful reminders. You can use the Tizen Alarm to launch other apps. Each app has its own exclusive alarm storage, which means other apps cannot view or edit alarms set by others. Once an alarm goes off, it is removed from the alarm storage automatically. Here's a quick look at the interfaces and methods in the Tizen Alarm API. The Alarm Manager object interface defines what is instantiated by the Tizen object from the Tizen platform. Next is the Alarm Manager interface, which provides methods for managing alarms like add, remove all, get, and get all alarms. It also provides constants for intervals which can be used later for alarms. The Alarm interface is an abstract interface for alarm types. Tizen supports two types of alarms, relative and absolute. The Alarm Relative interface provides the relative alarm, which occurs at a fixed interval in the future. It triggers after a duration from the moment the alarm is added. It's great for countdown timers. Unlike Alarm Relative, Alarm Absolute triggers at an absolute date like the alarm in your phone's clock app. Before moving on, let's have a quick peek at the requirements. First and foremost, we need the Tizen IDE. You can download the installer on developer.tizen.org. Now that we have the IDE covered, next is the tool for testing. The included emulator will do. If you have a Samsung Z1, now is the best time to develop on it. But if you don't have one yet, the Remote Test Lab or RTL can help you check your app on a Tizen device remotely. Just head over to developer.samsung.com and click Remote Test Lab. If you'd like to play with the code of our app, it's available for download in the link in the description below. With the requirements covered, it's time to show you how the Alarm API is used. The very first thing to remember when creating apps that use an alarm is to add the alarm privilege in our config.xml. We mentioned earlier that the Alarm API can open other apps. If you'd like your app to open other apps when the alarm is triggered, you need to include the application.launch privilege. Just open config.xml and head over to the Privileges tab. Click on Add and type Alarm in the search field. Once added, click on Finish to close the window. Do the same for application.launch. Now let's show you how to create a sample absolute alarm. First, we'll instantiate a date object which includes the year, month, day, hour, and minute our alarm will go off. In our example, we set a date for July 4, 2015 at 8 in the morning. Then we declare an alarm object named alarm1 and instantiate it as alarm absolute, passing along the date object. That's it for the absolute alarm. Now it's time for the relative alarm. For the relative alarm, we just declare an object of type alarm relative. As a parameter, the delay is set to 3 hours later. 3 is the value being multiplied to the interval, which is period r. With the basic knowledge of how alarms are added, let's head over to our Exercise Planner app. The Exercise Planner has 8 JavaScript files that separate the model from the logic. Let's go through the important functions of the files. Main.js and app.js are entry points of our app. Main.js has an initializing function named init that loads app.js. It also has a function to load libraries called loadlibs, which loads all the other JavaScript files. Inside app.js, there's an initializing function that creates new objects for the config, model, and UI. There are also functions that call the model's exercise-specific functions such as add exercise, get all exercises, get exercise, and remove exercise. Config.js simply defines the properties that our app needs from time to time. This includes the image paths and file locations. The only function here is get, which returns the default value given the key. For our app's models, we have model.js and alarm.js. Model.js contains the functions and properties for the exercise object. Taking a look at the code, you will notice this .alarm helper was instantiated as an alarm object. Now this alarm object is defined in alarm.js and holds the actual alarm setting functions that we showed you earlier. Moving on to alarm.js, we see the creation of an absolute alarm. As we add an alarm, an exercise object is passed from the model. Before assigning a date to the date variable, the exercise object start time is passed to the data picker value to date function, so it can be converted to and returned as a date object. The date object is then passed to the date variable. With the date ready, we're ready to create our alarm object. It is instantiated as an alarm absolute object, passing along the date and exercise days. Since we want our app to open its own notification screen later, we need to include an app control object passing the app control operation URI defined in app.js. This tells the Tizen Alarm Manager that we need to have this app open when the alarm time is reached. Taking a quick peek at our config.xml source, we can see that we're using the Tizen app control tag. It has a subtag named Tizen operation. When the alarm goes off, the phone will be looking for an app with this specific tag. The source tag points to index.html, which is meant for the app's notification. At this point, our app's date, alarm, and app control objects are now ready to be added to the device's alarm list. So we will now call tizen.alarm.add to include the given details as an alarm. When the user decides to remove an alarm, the model object calls the alarm object and passes an exercise object with an ID. This ID will then be used to remove an alarm by calling tizen.alarm.remove. Now for the user interface. I'd like to show you how the pages of our app was designed. Looking at our app's folder structure, you will notice a folder called Templates. This folder holds files that end in TPL. These files are templates and they contain HTML tags ready to be drawn on the screen. As an example, here's the home template. On the header, we have the words Exercise Planner tagged as header 1. For the content, we just have a simple list. And for the footer, we have a button to add a new exercise. During the demonstration, we'll see how the pages look like. Since templates also use HTML tags, they are good alternatives to regular HTML pages. However, you will need the template manager to load the templates. In our exercise planner, UI.js, TemplateManager.js, and TemplateManagerModifiers.js work together to take care of the UI. Included are the functions for initializing and binding pages. They preload pages once the app is launched for quick access. Once the pages are preloaded, event listeners are added to the back button depending on each page to know if the app will exit or not. Finally, events are added to the elements of the home, new exercise, and notification pages in the code. With our app ready, it's time for a demonstration. As you can see, it shows an empty list ready to be given reminders for exercise. Let's tap on Add New Exercise to make a new one. In the new page, we can add the name, the days we'd like to exercise, start time, and a short comment. Let's go put jog at the park for the name, tick on Saturday and Sunday, then set the start time at 6 in the morning. Finally, let's add a comment to remind me to bring a towel. I added another entry called Gym with Christina set at 7 in the evening every Monday and Thursday. When 7 p.m. finally arrives each Monday and Thursday, an alarm will go off and remind you to exercise like this. You can view the exercises list, or you can just dismiss by tapping on Exit. Time for a trip down memory lane. The Tizen Alarm API lets your app use system alarms in your Tizen phone. Tizen supports two types of alarms, relative and absolute. Relative is great for countdowns and absolute is good for scheduled alarms. Each application's alarm is exclusive to itself, which means other apps can't access your app's alarm storage. However, you can still use the Alarm API to call apps. Don't forget to add the alarm and application.launch privilege to your config.xml. Alarm allows you to set and get alarms while application.launch lets your app launch other apps. Lastly, the remote test lab is ready to help you if you don't have a Samsung Z1 device to test personally. Just sign up at developer.samsung.com. That's it for our exercise with the Tizen Alarm. I hope that this shines a bright light on developing web apps for Tizen that use the alarm. If you have any inquiries, please post your questions on the official forum at developer.samsung.com and at developer.tizen.org. Also, don't forget to give a thumbs up on this video and subscribe to the Samsung Developers channel. Thanks for watching!